This is Pastor Waggoner again, and this is the video series Expository Preaching Simplified, and this is video number 6. And so, you've titled number 6, Search the Scriptures. This again, I think I may have included you in that we were going to talk about sermon preparation, actually, starting with number 6, and that's what we're going to do, but it's going to be kind of introductory to the whole process of putting together a sermon outline. But anyway, now that we have covered the preacher's calling, covered the preacher's education, the need for an adequate theological understanding of the Scriptures, and we've also talked about understanding the original languages. Those all are foundational aspects of expository preaching, and we've addressed all of them in the first 5 videos. But now we need to get down to some brass tacks here. We need to move on to sermon preparation. Now, the first thing an expositor must do is choose a text to preach. You have to decide where you're going to go in the Bible. It's a pretty big book. Probably don't want to approach it randomly. The first thing you need to do then is decide what to preach. Now, I highly recommend preaching through books of Scripture. It will alleviate the agony of choosing a new text to preach every week. And believe me, that's agonizing at times. Over time, it also guarantees that you will be preaching the whole counsel of God and not just maybe the things that you prefer to study or preach. Now, a paragraphed translation is very helpful in determining where to begin and end an individual sermon. The paragraph divisions are made in an English translation in terms of topic. Okay, these so many sentences all address one particular topic. That's a paragraph. So paragraphs help you identify and deal with a singular topic. Now, you can also pay, and you should pay, close attention to Greek and Hebrew conjunctions. You know, the ands and the therefores and wherefores and so forth. Pay close attention to the Greek and Hebrew conjunctions because their relationship is a connecting relationship between what precedes and what follows. And they will help you know perhaps where to begin and end a particular sermon. They will tell you when a topic being addressed changes. So, in addition to a paragraph translation, taking note of the conjunctions, a good commentary will also be divided by passage, and that can be very advantageous as well. The idea is always here. No matter how you do it, the idea is to identify a passage of Scripture that deals with one basic topic. This is because a good sermon has one basic idea, not a plethora of unrelated information. That's a killer because people can't connect the dots, and it's just a lot of random thoughts otherwise. Now, once a text has been settled upon, we have to do a study of the text. And this is what you would call an exegetical study. The word exegetical means you're going to draw the meaning out of the text. You're not imposing meaning on it. You're not deciding on a sermon you want to preach or picking out a topic or an outline and going and finding proof text, but you're literally going to the Scripture first and drawing out of it what the Scripture says. So, how do you do this? Well, I suggest you begin by doing a diagrammatical analysis of the text. A diagrammatical analysis is about like what you did in 8th grade English. You draw a baseline, you have a place for the subject, a place for the verb, a place for the direct object, a place for the modifiers underneath. It's just a nice, simple little diagram. So, a diagrammatical analysis of the text is essentially the same thing as what you learned back there in 8th grade, except it's done in the original language. If you want to, you can do it in the English, but you've really got to pay close attention to the original because translations add words and change around sequences and so forth. Now, You can learn how to do grammatical analysis on your own. There's books you can buy that will show you how to do it. Just Google it, they'll come up. And it's probably good that you learn a little bit of that and you get familiar with it by actually doing it. But you can also consult diagrammatical analysis that's already been done of your chosen text. Now, the comprehensive Bible study softwares that are available, such as Logos and BibleWorks, provide diagrams of the New Testament. So they're already done. So why sit there for an hour trying to diagram 10 or 12 verses yourself when all you got to do is just have the right reference and you pull them up? So, well, you can also purchase completed Greek diagrams for whole books of the New Testament, perhaps all the New Testament now. And again, you just Google that and you'll find sources. For me, I find it a whole lot easier to just have a diagram and go find it and print it out, and I don't have to worry, did I diagram it right? Did I goof something up here? Just go print it out, and then I'll use that printout of the diagram as a study sheet or a place for my notes to go in the margins and so forth. So doing it this way can save considerable time, and it will draw on the expert ability of others who produce these diagrams. So after I print out the diagrams, I'll use that printout as a worksheet and I'll go through and I'll identify and label the verb tenses first and the word meanings. We'll say, how do you do that? Well, I just went through that in the last video as far as showing you how you can do that on Bible Hub. It's all done for you. But you got to know, if you look on there and it says it's an aorist verb, you got to know what an aorist verb is. So that was the purpose of the last video. You've got to get some handle on the Greek grammar before you can use the tools that are available. But once you have some knowledge, okay, what are the verb tenses, what are their uses, what's a participle, what's it do, how's it used, infinitives, conjunctions, so forth, then you go to the diagram, and if you're not sure what it is, you just flip over to Bible Hub, and it'll tell you what each word is, whether it's a noun, whether it's an adverb, whether it's a verb or whatever. So that means this is fairly easy to do, and you do it for a while, over a period of years, you become pretty adept at it. So, consult your own analysis or use a ready-made one, use it as a worksheet, print it out, and then go through and label every verb. Okay, that's a present tense indicative active verb. You label it. You've got to understand what's a present tense verb mean in Greek, and what's the indicative mean, and what's the active voice mean, and but you should already know all that. So you label it, and you got it there without having to have memorized all of the Greek endings, like verb endings and so forth, that would identify it if you had them all memorized. Okay, now, that being said, this grammatical analysis, verbs, participles, infinitive nouns, all this is extremely important. But the thing you need to concentrate on once you've got this done, and where you need to start, once you've labeled everything, is make sure you identify and understand the main verbs. Now, the main verbs are going to appear on that horizontal line in the middle where the verbs go. But main verbs are the key to understanding a passage of Scripture. In other words, you don't want to preach a sermon on prepositional phrase, because a prepositional phrase modifies a verb, and you got to know what it modifies. Modifies a verb or participle or whatever. So, begin with those main verbs, and then once you've done that, you can move on to consult a good exegetical commentary, which will deal with the intricacies of the original language. Now, when I say an exegetical commentary, I just don't mean any commentary you pull off the shelf. You've got to find somebody who has written a commentary that explains the meaning of the original language and the use of the words and how you understand it and what are the interpretive problems and what are some various interpretations and what they feel is the right one. That's an exegetical commentary. So when you use that commentary, you do that after you've done your initial study. And what you're doing is you're either going to confirm the conclusions that you may have come to, or you may have to say, hey, I got to rethink this. I didn't look at that right. I didn't analyze that right. So it's a good check at that point. Now, the goal is to develop here a good grasp of the text and its meaning through this process. Once you're comfortable with your understanding of the original text, then you want to round out your study by then taking a look at some more what I would call expositional commentaries, where they basically just give you an English translation, and they talk about its meaning and help you with applications and things like that. And there are some good ones out there, and they sometimes will refer to the Greek or the Hebrew as well, but that's not their focus. They don't contain the most technical of the explanations regarding the original language, is what I'm trying to say. Their value will be in giving you perhaps insight in how to preach the text by looking at how other folks, the author, and so on, if you're using multiple commentaries, more than one author, have dealt with the text as far as trying to communicate it. So, having completed then your study of the text, what do you do next? Well, here's a good suggestion. It may be a good idea to put it all aside, get out of the office, and do something else for a little while. This will give you a little time to recharge, give you some time to think about what you've studied, what it means, and give you a little rest from the intense mental process of doing this study. You may want to end the day. I always start on Monday. Some preachers start on Tuesday. I sometimes end Monday, or I aim to end Monday, at least most of the time. I'll try to end Monday with a completion of my study of the text. Then I'll move on to sermon instruction the next day.